Imagine standing alone on a train platform in occupied Europe, surrounded by enemy soldiers, knowing that somewhere in the crowd there could be a man who had been ordered to find you. Imagine hearing footsteps behind you and realizing that the person following you might be the reason you never see your family again. You cannot run, you cannot panic, you cannot even look afraid. Because if you make one mistake, if your eyes move in the wrong direction, if your voice trembles for even a second, everything is over. The name on your documents is a lie. The identity you are living under is a lie. The person everyone believes you are does not exist. But the mission is real. The people depending on you are real. And somewhere beyond the darkness of the occupied cities, thousands of Allied soldiers are waiting for information that only you can provide. Now imagine being told to disappear and making the decision to stay. This is the story of the invisible war fought behind enemy lines. A war where courage was measured by how calmly you could walk into danger and pretend you were not afraid. During the Second World War, millions of men fought on battlefields where the enemy was visible and the sound of danger could be heard from miles away. But behind those enormous armies existed another war, one that was almost completely invisible to the outside world. It was a war fought in railway stations, quiet cafes, and dark apartments. It was fought by people who carried false documents instead of rifles, secret messages instead of ammunition, and information instead of weapons. One piece of intelligence could save an entire unit. The location of enemy forces, the movement of equipment, or the position of a headquarters could change the course of a battle. But intelligence was only valuable if gathered without being caught. This was the terrifying reality faced by agents working behind enemy lines. A spy could sit inside a cafe surrounded by people and have absolutely no idea who was watching her. The enemy could be a soldier at a checkpoint, a stranger across the room, or even someone pretending to be a friend. In this world, trust, fear, and even silence could be dangerous. Her greatest weapon was not something she carried in a holster. It was her ability to disappear in plain sight. She could stand among ordinary civilians and become just another face in the crowd. Every mission began with the same understanding. One mistake could destroy everything. A document examined too carefully, a question asked at the wrong moment, a radio transmission lasting too long. Informants were everywhere. People disappeared without warning. Safe houses were discovered. Communication networks were broken apart. One name or one secret could collapse an entire network. Radio operators knew every transmission was a risk. Enemy services were searching for signals, attempting to locate the source. Those minutes could be the most dangerous of an agent's life. She watched the streets, she studied the people, and when the opportunity appeared, the information was sent. For a few moments the message traveled invisibly, then the radio went silent. But the enemy was beginning to notice. Security checks became more frequent. Checkpoints became more dangerous. Every day in occupied territory increased the risk of being discovered. Walking through a quiet street, she noticed footsteps behind her. She could not turn around quickly or start running. She just kept walking, heart racing but face calm. Eventually, the footsteps disappeared. Then the network began to collapse. Safe houses were compromised. Contacts disappeared. She could leave, but if she did, others would be left behind. Resistance could collapse completely. In the end, she stayed. Courage is walking past a checkpoint knowing that person could end your life. It is hearing footsteps behind you and refusing to run. Choosing to stay because someone needs you. The war continued, and so did the invisible battle. Eventually, Allied armies advanced. Occupation collapsed. Cities were liberated. Streets filled with fear began to fill with hope. But victory could never erase the memories of friends who disappeared. Behind the great battles was another army, an invisible army who risked their lives without knowing if history would remember their names. Freedom is won quietly in the darkness, by the person who opens a door for a stranger, by the operative who walks through an enemy city carrying secrets that change the fate of hundreds. She was not fearless. She knew the danger. She knew one mistake could destroy everything. But she continued, because beyond the darkness, families were waiting for loved ones. Freedom was no longer an impossible dream. She walked into enemy territory knowing she might never walk out. She lived among people who could have betrayed her. She heard the footsteps behind her and she kept walking. Because sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who walk into the darkness, knowing exactly what waits for them, and never break. This was the spy who walked into hell.